Great, thank you. Thanks, Anthony. Yeah, interesting name to the panel, Immuno Adaptation. I'm going to spend a couple minutes talking about that, but first let's do introductions. I'll start. I'm Pam Brodt. I'm the founder and CEO of the Roundtable Network. The short answer is I've been in cyber for 20 years and I curate technology for 54 Fortune 500 CISOs. So maybe Dave Estlick could kick off the next introduction and we can go around the table.
You bet. Hi, I'm Dave Estlick. I'm the Global Chief Information Security Officer for Chipotle Mexican Grill.
Great.
Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Fridakis. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, that's great. Let's go right around the room.
Go ahead, David.
Go ahead, Steve.
So I'm Steve Fridakis. I'm the Technical Program Manager for Google Security, and I work in mergers and acquisitions.
Hi, I'm Mike Catlin. I'm the CISO from the Capital Group companies.
Hi, my name is Dave Masson, and I'm the Director of Enterprise Security for Darktrace.
I can't hear him. Oh, there we go.
Can you hear me now?
No. We'll keep going. All right. So no problem. We'll come back to your introduction. No problem. Yeah. So, I guess when Anthony asked me to moderate this panel, I asked him a few questions about the word immuno and, the name of our panel, Immuno Adaptation, becoming a protected enterprise and what that meant to him. And, I thought, for our audience and our listeners here, it would be helpful to just take maybe 30 seconds or a minute to talk about what Anthony was thinking with regards to this. And it's actually really smart and an interesting title given we're in the middle of a pandemic, right? We're all relying on our immune systems to take care of us. But the cybersecurity function of an enterprise is a lot like a human immune system. An adversary is a lot like a virus when it gets into our system. And we rely on our immune system to stop that virus from causing us major harm. In the enterprise, the immune system is our people, our processes, our technology. And we know that many breaches happen, from basic things, cyber hygiene, patching, configuration. This is the same for our bodies. If we're not doing great with our diet or our exercise, our immune system cannot protect us. So there is many analogies here. I mean, I think the interesting ones are like insider threat. It's kind of like cancer. The cells turn against us. Well, it's when our trusted employees turn against us. Or like digital evolution, right? It's very similar to that. Maybe we're just lagging behind a little bit on this. And so our immune system is too, and maybe needs some medicine. So I like the analogy. I think it's super interesting. I think it's a great way for us to kick off our panel. And I don't know if all the speaking issues were resolved, but hopefully they are. So we'll start with, go around the room the same way we just did with introductions. Maybe Dave, you can answer the first question. What are some of the most effective tools and processes or procedures in your arsenal for, protecting the immune system
So I think, so I'm going to answer this more conceptually than I will about talking about any particular product or implementation. And I think that there are three things that I look at. One is connecting end to end based on the stakeholders and individuals involved. So what this means is going all the way from tactical to strategic and back. So anything that I can use to have a conversation with the executive team or leadership and helps inform that conversation, as well as is valuable to my engineers and analysts, at ground zero, that's going to provide huge benefit and huge value. And typically what we see is that tools are focused to the technician or they're focused to the strategist. Most of the time, they don't blend the two. The second is operational burden and operational overhead. So how much do I have to continue to invest in this particular solution? And then the last would be And I think this is where there is a sufficient gap in the offerings today, and that is connecting all the phases of the life cycle. So you can buy a point solution for a particular moment in time during the overall life cycle, but what we really need is something to address the full life cycle. And either that's a single solution or it is point solutions that are easily integratable into an overall life cycle.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Stephen?
So I'm going to play to the analogy. I'm going to play to the analogy of the coronavirus. So what was it about the coronavirus? It was obviously unexpected, it was untreatable, and it was unpredictable in its scale. So similarly, therefore, in security, we have deterministic security and we have deterministic tools, which all of us subscribe to, intrusion detection, firewalls, all of that. So those don't go away. Maybe controls change or maybe nuances change. The interesting thing about the arsenal here is the stochastic aspect of security. But the things that we do not anticipate, the things that we cannot treat, and the things whose scale is unknown to us once they present themselves. So just give you an example to that is with more people working from home, the home network becomes part of our surface. We have to then develop a mechanism to not trust not just the device that the individual is using, but also the network that they're attached to, which is very new to us. And this is not because of any technical predicament, but instead is because of the duration of the engagement. We built systems for remote access that were very short-lived. We anticipated somebody to work remotely for a small time, or it was an isolated event of a resource that we just acquired somewhere that we didn't happen to have an office. This model is now very different. So therefore, it's not about extending the arsenal solely, but it's also about adapting the existing arsenal and anticipating that the scale of, say, remote access or the nuances of our controls along the lines of the non-trust now extending not just to the device but the network, the level of the necessity of multi-factor authentication, and the ability to manage vulnerabilities when the devices are actually not connected directly to our network. That is just a start. And in my case, I do have some more complicated problems, which I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to talk about. But this is how we view the evolution of our arsenal in this new paradigm of work.
Great, thank you. Mike?
Sure, thanks. The way I've thought about this and the way we've built our program is around kind of 3 points. The first point would be what I've called getting the basics right every day. So it's having those base processes in place. And in the Immuno example, it's really, you mentioned it early on, it's the health, it's understanding what's going on, it's having, something like a Garmin watch to know, what your heart rate is and what your blood pressure is. And I know in my case, my blood pressure went way down when my children moved out. But I think taking that and starting out and saying, that's where we're going to start. Is we're going to get it right. And we've seen many a case where a breach or an incident has happened, and it wasn't because they didn't know what was happening, but they didn't have that follow through. And so we preach that a lot. It's like if we're going to do something, let's do it right. Let's get it right every day. The second thing is awareness. I'm not sure how to think exactly about my associate base in the idea. I guess maybe they're little antigens that kind of look around for what's going on. But making sure that people understand, again, if you look at every breach or nearly every breach, it's some sort of social engineering. So we've spent a lot of our time just really pushing the idea of you've got to recognize these things right when they come in, and you've got to let somebody know. And I think as we've done that, we've measured a couple of things. And the primary thing we're measuring, and I think it really is, it's the success point I look for. I'm never going to get to zero, just like you can never stop every virus from getting into the body. I'm never going to stop everybody from clicking, But if I can get more people to tell us that they did it, or say that they saw something that didn't make sense, the more I can do that, the better off we are. So that, and we've achieved up to 30% of people telling us about our phishing tests, and that rolls over nicely to real phishing, because then we can get it out of the environment more quickly. And then finally, the third area that we have focused on is, and you mentioned it right in the opening, is around hygiene, and that is, I think, having obviously up-to-date hardware, software, all of that in support, and then patching very quickly. We've been pushing that time down. We can patch our entire facility now in about 5 hours in a true emergency. And it's done through a lot of automation and a lot of people wringing their hands when we go to do it. But what we've decided is keeping that hygiene up is maybe more important than the occasional outage that a patch may cause. So that's our approach.
Awesome, thank you, David. Hopefully you're back up and running here. I'll pass to you.
Guys, even if you can't hear me, apparently the audience can. So I'll put my hand up to say I'm speaking, and I'll put it up when I'm finished. Oh, you can hear me now, right? There you go.
Yeah.
Pam, when you mentioned immuno adaptation, for those of people who know Darktrace, you'll understand that I was absolutely cock a hoop, because we do advocate an immune system approach to cybersecurity. And the reason we do so is for two reasons, really. The networks you try to protect, imagine our own bodies, are highly, highly complex. They're too complex. They're getting too sophisticated for human beings to understand them. And at the same time, and picking up on something that Stephen said, looking at the threat outside, you cannot keep up with that threat. It's too much, too complex, it's too fast. Stephen said it's too unpredictable. Whereas if you adopt an immune system approach to understanding the self, if you like, of your digital infrastructure, your networks or whatever, if you take that approach and concentrate on the defensive, you've got a better chance of seeing change to yourself in real time. And because you're seeing it in real time, you get a better chance of being able to do something about it. Now, obviously, pretty much the way I would advocate to do that is obviously to use artificial intelligence, but that's not about replacing people. That's actually about supporting that scarce human resource that all of us here find it very, very difficult to recruit. So absolutely, given scale of threat, unpredictability, and needing a technology that will actually adapt as things change, because nothing's static, nothing is ever static, then yeah, absolutely, an immune system approach is what's needed. Finished.
We can hear you just fine now, David. So why don't we move to our next question? Keeping with the same theme, of course, how can we help our teams go on the offensive to protect against the risks in our environment? Obviously we can't do it ourselves, and our teams are so critical, the people resource. So how do you empower them? So Dave, you want to start?
Sure. So I guess I would springboard off of what David just said, and that is giving them the tools and techniques to kind of separate signal from noise. Make sure that there is instrumentation within the environment to help surface those and maximize their contribution at the end of the day. So I think too much of what happens today in cybersecurity organizations, there are a lot of dead ends, or there are a lot of items that may at the surface appear to be a large item that when they run that down, they're like, well, actually, this is a false positive, or it was something that really didn't need the investment that we just put into it. Likewise, there are plenty of false negatives, and the news is full of that, where organizations just due to capacity, there was an indicator, hindsight's 2020, they go back and say, well, this alert or this item fired and you guys didn't respond to it. Well, it wasn't that people were drinking coffee and not caring about that. It was that they were off chasing a bunch of other things at the time. So I think, and this goes back to a theme that I think I heard from all of the other panelists on recognizing that we're resource constrained There's a fight for talent anyway, day in and day out. So how can you make their current role more valuable and more attractive at the end of the day? And if you can do that, then people feel that they're more valued and they're much more likely to stay, and kind of increases the stickiness of your program. So I think, a lot of people look at the term offense and they're thinking about hackback and a bunch of these other things, and I just don't think that that's in the near future for any of us. It's about making sure that your program is operationally efficient, and you're giving the tools to your team to make sure that they're providing value and that they're recognized for the value that they're providing.
Yeah, it is. Retention is so important in our industry, and taking care of our people and empowering them. Absolutely, Dave. So Stephen, your thoughts?
So there are two philosophies that we have at Google that I think they're becoming these days more prominent and prevalent. So, but they have to do with to be accurate about it, they have to do with a certain degree of automation, and they have to do with a lot of trust. So the first philosophy has to do, if you find a problem, fix the problem. And the differentiation with that is maybe, I hate to say the old days because it's only 3 months, 4 months back, but maybe what we're used to is we identify the problem, we log the problem, then there is a mechanism of evaluation. Well, you know something, that is now gone. If you find it, just fix it. The second philosophy is that there is no shame in messing up. And the idea with that is that if you fix it and you fix it the wrong way, what does that do? It just illustrates that there was a problem to start with, because our process should have stopped you from messing up. So the good news is that you identified a shortcoming in some control. So we inspire each other to say, first, fix it. Don't ask. You will log it later. We'll track the documentation later. Just fix it. Anyone can fix a problem. And the second issue is that if you mess up while fixing, there is no shame to that. As a matter of fact, kudos to you because you found an underlying problem, because the method itself, the automation itself, should have stopped you from messing up to start with. So this is true empowerment, especially in these days of, again, going to the theme of unpredictability and workflows that were not created to start with, utilizing this current method of working. And that's what we do at Google.
I love that. There's a lot of conversation right now about how to take, care of your employees during this very uncertain time. And I think reassuring them that, just working hard and it's okay to make mistakes. It's a great comment. Mike, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so first off, I think, the first two answers around being proactive, empowerment. Those are two things that to me are critical to having a solid security organization, and especially to everything that was said around retention and all of that. And one of the things that we've done, and maybe is that I think is very useful for us, is taking the idea of the red team exercise and the red blue team exercise, kind of getting this purple team where you have people really from almost a continuous improvement perspective, just going through and, hey, let's figure out before this happens, let's figure out where we're weak, and let's fix those vulnerabilities. And it kind of goes back to the whole theme of this presentation, is let's find the places where that that bit of malware or that virus or whatever it is going to get in, and let's strengthen that part of the immune system. And we're empowered to do that. So I look for people coming to me saying, yeah, we got together and we realized that, this wasn't working, very similar to the Google example of, just fix it. And then let's step back afterwards. Let's improve our playbook so that the next time we see it, even if it's not the same people, they'll be able to handle it. And let's do that from kind of a bottom-up perspective. And I think, at least in our environment, that has really helped us to kind of move maybe faster than certainly a top-down approach could have ever done, especially because I wouldn't have thought of half of the cool stuff they're doing. So, which is great to have that.
That's great. I love that. Thank you. David?
Yeah. What's the best thing you can do? Which is give them a chance. Give them some help. Invest in some real technology. It's actually going to help them out. It's not just the scale of the cyber threat that they're facing. It's actually business diversity. And we've just seen massive business diversity forced upon us by COVID-19. They're struggling with your company moving to cloud, hybrid cloud, this, that, and the next thing. IoT coming in. They suddenly discover that the guy in facilities has installed 20,000 interconnected light bulbs and never told you about it. We've got 5G coming down the line that's going to make things much, much better for us, but more complex for them when it comes to protect. And really, you're setting them up to fail if you don't actually help them out. So really what you need to do is get your hands on some technology that's actually going to do the heavy lift for your security teams. Do the heavy lift in terms of giving the visibility you're going to need on your massively complex network. Somebody's going to do the heavy lift for actually finding the threat in real for them, and not just finding, actually triaging it, saying, deal with this one first, then this one, and then this one. And get another tool that's going to do the heavy lift and actually stopping the threat and investigating it for them. And again, I stress, and I said it before, that's not about replacing them. That's about giving them a fighting chance, because they haven't got one right now, and they're not going to have one in the future unless you do this. Because if you do that, you'll actually free them up to engage in some quality work. And some of that quality work could be getting everybody ready for coming to the office. Some of that quality work could be a new digital transformation project. That work could be getting ready for 5G. Because if you don't, they're going to start making mistakes. The word we use in our business is misconfiguration, but let's be honest about it. It's actually a mistake. So invest in some real technology that's actually going to support your teams and give them a fighting chance in the fight.
Yeah, well said. I think, it's a combination, of course, of people, process, and technology. They can't do it without it. And, we're all looking for automation these days because you just can't keep throwing people at the problem. It doesn't work. So we have time for kind of a rapid final question. So, we can keep it short. We have like a little less than 3 minutes left. I think it's interesting, this digital transformation, a big part of that obviously is moving to the cloud. Do you see the cloud as almost like a greenfield opportunity to get it right and not have all that technical debt that you're used to dealing with on-prem? Or is it just another big challenge? Because I think of like the immune system or, a fresh start and true, a potential greenfield here with this transition to the cloud. Thoughts from you, Dave?
Well, I think that all depends on that's broader than just cybersecurity and how you see that. It's how your organization sees that effort. And if they're looking at just migrating to the cloud, it's not real true transformation. So you'll just move workloads from your data center to somebody else's data center with the same broken processes. And, I think the conversation before this, it was posed a question about transformation and evolution. And I think transformation is making the change. Evolution is about leverage and increasing leverage after the change is made. And so I think that there absolutely is an opportunity. It just depends on how your company specifically has embraced that.
Great. So Stephen, maybe 20 seconds?
Well, I'm not going to say anything bad about the cloud. That would be career suicide. But the the pace of innovation is the key thing here. We're dealing with capacity. So if I was a company, I'd rather be spending my time being better at my business and allow somebody else to innovate technology, deal with scalability and the unpredictability of spikes. And that's truly the case here. So I don't think this is even a matter of debate.
Excellent. Thanks. Mike?
No question. Since I think I'm next, I'll try to save us a little time. So I would say, you could end up building tomorrow's legacy today if we're not careful, and I think that's what we've got to guard against. And I guess what I've seen is there's so much interest in going fast. It's really bringing back people to the business imperative of we want to have secure, stable, reliable systems. And I think keeping that balance in the front of the conversation is what's going to save us. And I'll pass it on.
David?
Very quickly, your cloud service provider is responsible for the security of the cloud, but you are responsible for what you do in the cloud. So get it right.
Good. That's a great way to end. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.